Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis, a podcast dedicated to the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. Join us as we seek the truth and travel the long road to justice. Happy Saturday, everybody. Boy, we've taken a break this week.
Yeah.
Man, we had so much going on. We started school back, which now is all virtual here. And big shout out to all the teachers, because I'm going to tell you, we've both worked in schools and we know on the best days it's chaotic. So having all this stuff going on between in person a couple of days a week and your staggering arrival times and then virtual school is crazy in itself. I bet teachers are enjoying this weekend.
Yes, I would be.
Yeah. So what did you do this week, Fruit Loop? I haven't seen you very much.
Yeah, I know. It's been a crazy week, hectic stuff at the house. Did a little small job and realized at 43, I'm not good at crawling around. I was running some wiring for some internet stuff and just realized this morning when I woke up that being 43 and doing all that does not add up right. So my legs are really sore. And I even worked out afterwards, like this morning. And yeah, I'm still sore.
Yeah, it's funny because I haven't seen you in days. And so you come over and I've, the last 2 days, I decided to shampoo all the carpet in my house. And so literally our conversation for the last 2 hours since you've been here is my lower back hurts. And you're like, get on the floor. And
I was trying to show you that stretch.
This is the exercise you do. It's, it's crazy because like after 40, things hurt. And for me, it's a little scary because I'm like, is that indigestion or a heart attack? We just had this discussion, by the way.
Yeah. And I said, don't die. We have to do a podcast.
Yeah. It's funny after you get a little older, those little aches and pains suddenly become, is this bad?
Yeah. Well, my PT person showed me that stretch because it saves me money from having to go to the chiropractor. So.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
So there hadn't been a ton of stuff like happening with the case news wise.
It's like quiet.
It's going to be this way in between. The next thing we have coming up is on September the 10th at, I believe, 12 o'clock Eastern time. We have Lori's arraignment, and it'll be brief like Chad's, maybe 10 minutes at best. And so we'll cover that. And after that, I guess, we wait for a trial or more charges or whatever comes, but there's going to be a lot of quiet time. We're still going to dig and try to find a lot of topics. There's plenty to go around with this case.
Yeah. And like tonight, we titled this Saturday Soup because it's a mixture of just a bunch of questions that some of you guys have asked and some stuff we found. So,
yeah. So I was watching Forensic Files this week, as I always do going to sleep. And
yeah, that makes you want to go to sleep.
It makes you not want to do a lot of things. I'm always paranoid now that there's a killer lurking in the shadows, and my little trip to Kroger is going to be the last time I'm seen alive. But there was something that I hadn't considered about this case until I watched that show. So assuming that Tylee was killed at the apartments, and the same with JJ, there was an episode where they were having a really hard time narrowing down that one guy had killed this girl, except they had these traffic webcams that are kind of up high on the poles. So you get sort of an aerial view of the cars passing, and they saw her body in the back of the truck. Plain as day. Just, you could see it. I mean, it was clear it was a body. So we got to thinking, if in fact the kids were, and we do think they were killed at the townhomes, I guess there's a chance he could have put them in the back seat. But in the event that he put them in the bed of the truck, that might be something they could see.
Yeah,
because we looked at the map.
Yeah, we pulled it up and looked, and they do have traffic cams. And I mean, we're not exactly sure exactly where they are. But we did see some on the road that he would have taken.
Yeah, there were two possible routes he could have taken. And both of those have several the traffic cams. You can pull them up, and they do kind of show there were some trucks passing. You could kind of see into the bed of those trucks. So it was just a little thing we were talking about before we went on.
That's some interesting stuff.
Yeah. And so also one of the things we were talking about too earlier is just discussing the last episode we did, which was, I think the last one was about Charles. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
We did the whole, remember the
right.
video, the triangle thing?
Yeah. I just wasn't sure if that was the last one. But we kind of were talking about some questions that we didn't bring up.
Yeah. So, one thing that came out was, why was Alex wearing sunglasses on his head that early in the morning? And he had been hit in the head.
With a bat.
With a bat.
Yeah.
So obviously that would have knocked his sunglasses off.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's what, like 8 o'clock after it was close to 9 when they got there, I guess.
8:36.
Yeah. But so apparently, according to Alex, he had been there all day or all morning. And then all this happened. He got hit in the head. And I don't know, if I just shot somebody and killed somebody out of self-defense and I'd been hit in the head with a bat, I don't think I would throw my sunglasses on before the cops come.
No, I don't think so either.
Which kind of brought us to another little theory.
Yeah, one of them was, did he come in after Charles got there?
Right, meaning did he pull in? Was Charles already maybe in the house and then Alex comes right behind him?
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, cell phone data is going to be such a big key in this case. They'll have physical evidence, obviously, especially with JJ. The amount of duct tape they used is going to be impossible that nothing got on all that.
Yeah.
And I think that's really going to point to who was right there when after he had died and they were doing this to him. I think if whoever put their hands on any of it, it's going to be known.
Yeah.
But I really do think that and I've said this all along, the digital evidence in this trial is going to be the key.
Most definitely.
Because if you think about it too, all of these, and we said in the last podcast, we had talked to somebody who a sister lived on that street at the time of the shooting, and law enforcement had asked for her ring cam footage of comings and goings down the street. So, and the same with Rexburg, I think if they're able to look at these traffic cams and then just business cams that are pointed towards main roads, I think that's really going to give us a good idea of who was where and when, or who was going to this place or that place.
Yeah. I mean, it's cameras in general.
Yeah.
Like there's always somebody filming something or what. I mean, you just don't never know.
Right.
Everything is put out there with security cameras in like banks and just on the highway in general.
Yeah.
Just a timeline. It helps establish a timeline.
Right. And I think that's a big thing is the times that, especially for Charles's murder, I mean, they're going to have people in that neighborhood that had the ring cams facing the street.
Yep.
And so that may help narrow down these timelines that we obviously think they lied about as a whole. And then we were talking about, we kind of go back and talk about basic stuff every now and then, because it seems like the more we learn about this case or the more we sort of dive into this case, we get different ideas.
Yeah. I compare it to, like a salad. Like you put a salad in a big bowl and all the good stuff like eventually goes to the bottom.
Oh yeah.
And then you shake it back up or, use the things and bring everything back up. So yeah.
Right. I think the more we learn, you kind of maybe look at things a little differently that you thought you had made your mind up about. And one of those, I've always flip-flopped. I don't know about you, but I've always flip-flopped on, this is my day, obviously, to be tongue-tied. Okay.
Mine was the other day.
It's my indigestion, y'all.
Yeah. Don't die over there.
Nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
You'll see me roll out.
Don't.
Yep. But I've always gone back and forth about it. But the more I think about it, I really think that these beliefs played such a big role in all this.
Yeah, I'm back and forth. It's like a seesaw.
Yeah. I've thought about it a lot this week because honestly, guys, I haven't tweeted much. We haven't posted much on Facebook or Instagram. I've just been concentrating on getting my kids off to a good start this year. If you're listening, send Valium because Okay, the math alone, guys. I have 3 kids in 3 different math classes. I can't help the 9-year-old with 9-year-old math, much less the 15-year-old with trigonometry.
I'm going to be real honest with you. Elementary school math now was probably college math when we were in high school.
Oh my gosh, it is insane, and we could do a whole podcast about that. But we'll get back on topic. But y'all pray for me. I'm struggling over here. But I think religion may have played a huge role, because any person that is just wanting to get rid of everybody for convenience to go live this fairy tale in Hawaii, I think a rational person might think, maybe one day Kay and Larry might want to hear from JJ, or Colby might want to hear from his siblings or whatever. And I just was thinking, I do think if they really thought the world was ending, that they just wouldn't have to answer for this very long. I don't know. I just really am kind of back on the bandwagon of religion playing a bigger role than I think what I gave it credit for.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of people who think that. I'm just back and forth. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, tomorrow I may think it didn't and they just wanted a free life. But
yeah.
I think the more I learn about this belief system they had, I don't know. I just think that it wasn't a small thing. I think that it was kind of the core. And we're going to come into that later. You've finished Chad's book and Melanie Gibb's book. Shout out to Fruit Loop for taking one for the team.
Yeah. Chad, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get
we'll get to that in a little bit.
We'll get to that in a minute. So what else, Fruit Loop?
So we know Melanie Pulowski is close to giving birth.
If she hasn't already.
If she hadn't already. Some responses in her court about the mental health eval and the slanderous statement to press about Brandon.
Yeah, that was filed this week. It wasn't really anything that gave any depth to their custody case, but there were some motions filed or responses. If you guys remember, Melanie's attorney put that really vicious statement about Brandon out to the press that was very, it accused him of a lot of stuff. And so he responded to that. That's kind of going back and forth in their custody case. And then we know there was a mental health evaluation ordered for or requested for Melanie. And there was something about a family dynamic profile or something. That's not the exact wording, but it was like some kind of a study of the family and how it functions is kind of what I took from it. So they just filed some stuff about that this week.
Gotcha. It's kind of, theirs is a little more quiet.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're not, because it has kids involved and all that stuff. So
yeah. And I don't think as of right now, their next hearing is until November. So a little ways in that.
Yep.
And that's also if at some point she gets arrested for conspiracy to commit murder with Brandon, I would assume that would kind of fall by the wayside.
Yeah. It's hard to say, okay, come on, like I'm ready for it. You know what I mean? I'm ready for it to happen.
Yeah, I know. Waiting is hard in this case because we want the satisfaction of charges being on paper. But, I mean, I don't know. I'm not convinced that they may not, try to get this trial in January over with. And then does a guilty verdict on that stuff support bigger charges later? Does it kind of strengthen their case is kind of what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have anything to lose by waiting. They're not going anywhere. We say that pretty much every podcast. But I don't know. I was just thinking, does a guilty verdict kind of help eventual conspiracy to commit murder or murder charges for the kids?
Yeah, it could be.
I don't know.
So another thing, did a cop find a silencer in Alex's belongings when Charles was shot? I thought that was a good question.
Yeah, somebody asked us. That was a really good question.
Yeah, you guys ask awesome questions and have awesome comments. And so that is did they find that?
I don't know.
Because we haven't read anywhere where anybody heard gunshots.
Mm-hmm. In none of this. I mean,
no.
Even Tammy's neighbors didn't hear a gunshot.
Yeah.
And I know their neighbors aren't right on top of each other, but there's somebody across the street.
Yeah, and all the different things.
I wonder, would it show on the gun if there's a place to put a silencer? I don't know.
Yeah, you can put a silencer on a 45.
But would there be like an adapter there to fit it?
Yeah, it has to screw on.
Okay, so maybe if law enforcement has Alex's gun, they might be able to examine it and tell whether or not there was a silencer on it.
Yeah.
Might be scratches or some kind of a marking where that thing went on. I don't know. I don't know much about guns.
Yeah, and I think we did this on another podcast. I think you're supposed to have those registered,
Right.
but we know you can buy them black market. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, but that's an interesting question. And I mean, if you know anybody that lived in the area and they did hear gunshots, shoot us a comment and let us know. But we hadn't found anything anywhere where anybody heard anything. So
no.
You watched a cool interview.
Yeah, Nate Eaton, he goes on this radio show every now and then and kind of gives an update about the case. And every now and then he sort of throws in, I guess, little unknown pieces of information that we haven't heard. And so I just wanted to summarize some interesting points that Nate made. His opinion right now is he's heard and he doesn't think that as of right now that they've turned on each other.
Oh, so he says he doesn't think they have.
From what I gather, I mean, that's
Gotcha.
sort of the way he put it.
Yeah.
I mean, he would know, I guess, I mean, the local media sometimes can get a little bit of information, a little insider information. Nate's really good about not spilling it. I'm sure Nate knows way more than he tells us with his connections, but I don't know. I mean, if it hadn't happened yet, I think it's inevitable. But do you think maybe there's just no rush to charge them? Because if they're just sitting there, it gives them a little time to stew.
I would be mad.
And yeah.
I would be stewing.
Yeah. But I wonder if this is sort of a tactic by Wood to make them sort of restless. And then right now we know they can't have any direct contact.
Yeah. Here's my thing. If the mind is an awesome thing, but it can cause you to like question and wonder and ponder.
Oh yeah.
So if you don't know for sure, and I mean, obviously, you watch all the crime shows.
Yeah.
The first one turned, gets the best deal, right?
Right.
So is that in their mind that is he going to turn, or is she going to, is she going to turn on me? It has to be in the back of their mind. So I wonder if that's not, it could be, Wood's way of just seeing if one of them will turn on the other one.
Yeah. I mean, it's, we've been in situations, not in jail, but where we need, you want to know something, but you can't get the answer. And so in your mind, you start going through all these scenarios, and then, you might zero in on one scenario and worry that's what's happening. And then you may react to that. I don't know. I mean, look, Means and Pryor share the same building. And I know legally they're not supposed to talk, but okay, I'm sure they're talking in some way.
And we did talk a little bit about this earlier, and because they were ordered no contact. So, and it may be somewhere else down the line. I don't know. I might have jumped the gun, but because Nate says right that possibly talking about people coming to see him. So
yeah, Nate did. He said that Chad did have a small list of people who are approved to. I don't think they can still have in-person visits right now because of COVID, but he does have a list of people, and I think some of those are family who can contact him. Now, whether or not they've used that and he's been in touch with people on the outside, we don't know. But I mean, they can go through a third party to communicate. I don't think specifically about the case because those calls are monitored. But I mean, you could say, hey, Chad's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dad's good, or whoever's seeing, I don't know who Lori, if anybody she has on her list.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe her family, but they can go through a third party, and there could be some code talk there. I mean, the bottom line is that Lori, her whole life, she's blamed everybody else for anything that happens to her. And I don't think this will be any different. In fact, I think this will be like the biggest one of all, because this is her life in prison. And so at some point that's going to click in her head that you got to throw somebody under the bus.
Sure. And she spent her whole life avoiding consequences.
Oh yeah. And that goes way back to her family. I mean, they had run-ins with the IRS, with the government, and
Yeah, wasn't it? They didn't think they should have to pay taxes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay.
Okay, hello, it's us over here.
But I think that'll come in her trial too. I think they're going to go way back to her childhood to give reasons why she's not accountable for much. That's just going to be a defense tactic, I think, other than some kind of a mental deficiency.
Yeah,
Those are the only two like ways I could see any sort of a defense at this point. But
yeah. And Nate says too, right, that we know probably only 20 to 40% of what law enforcement knows.
yeah, and I mean, that doesn't surprise me. We know very little about this case after all these months, and that's just to protect the integrity of the investigation. But I mean, if you do an inventory of potential evidence that we're going to see at trial, it's a lot.
Yeah, and he shared pretty. I mean, this was like a bombshell he dropped a little bit because when I like rewound it and played it again when he said it.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to tell us, the public, anything they don't have to, and we know that, and we saw that at Chad's preliminary, which is they just essentially used, the text with Tammy and that sort of thing, and the timestamps. They didn't give up much at all. That's why I really wanted Lori's preliminary, is because I think at that point they got to give up something of evidence they have on her.
Yeah. But he dropped this new one, the new recording, right? The new recording Nate's talking about.
Oh, yeah. So apparently there are other recordings out there that are going to come in a really big way at trial. One of those, I believe he said, was by Melanie Gibb.
Yep.
And then there was another, she had spoken publicly about Charles's, I guess in a group setting with these people. And apparently was talking about Charles's death, murder. And so Nate just said that would come in a big way at the trial. So
yeah, and I think he said he had heard that.
I don't know if he said he had heard the tape.
I thought he said he had heard it and it was gonna be a big deal.
I kind of interpreted that as he had heard there were other recordings that were going to come in a big way. I don't know.
See, that's how like people are different. Like I assumed he meant he had listened to it.
Yeah, it's like tomato.
There you go. Potato.
And then if more charges come out, is there a chance that these conspiracy to conceal or destroy or alter evidence kind of gets pushed aside?
Yeah.
That's a thought. Yeah. Either they're going to charge them with bigger stuff before January or not. So if it's before, I think that would just kind of be clumped in with a conspiracy or a murder charge.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to have a separate trial for this if they've charged them with big stuff, I don't think.
Yeah. Whatever puts them away forever, then I'm good with.
Yes. And then within the next few weeks, the prosecutor has asked, he wants to know if there are going to be any plans for mental illness as a defense.
Yep. And we know they don't have insanity defense in Idaho.
No.
But we discussed it before. It's a difference. You touched on that a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I think the only thing that could happen here, you can't plead insanity. But I wonder, is it a situation where if Means tried to have her evaluated to say she's not competent to stand trial, that's different than insanity. So if Means is going that route, then that would be interesting to know.
Yeah, and I don't know if you think back several times through when she's been in front of the judge, he's used this, she is the model prisoner.
Yeah, well, apparently all they do is sit in their cells and read scripture and pray. Nate did say on this recording that they are segregated, and we've heard the opposite before, that they were in general population or they were free to be in general population. But Nate did say they were segregated away from others. So I guess that's kind of all you can do if you're just stuck in your cell.
I'm thinking we saw like pictures of inside of that jail where Chad is, and it's pretty small. Like they had like a bunch of like bunks in this one room. So I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
They don't have a lot of room in there.
No, but I mean, even if they're out in general population, where Lori is, it's maybe a dozen people in there with her, if that. It's super small. So it's a tiny town. It's, they don't have a big, huge facility.
Yeah.
And they have a really notorious inmate right now. It has to be a challenge for both places that have the both of them because they're not used to this. They're probably used to the dude like stumbling down the street who's drunk.
Yep. So, do people really believe that Alex Cox will be blamed for killing and burying the kids?
No, I mean, he would have had to. Okay, so just think of this scenario. Let's say Lori and Chad say, we had no clue. Okay, so we would have to think that Alex helped himself over to Chad's property, dug up the property twice, started some fires, and Chad had no clue. And then, of course, that Alex would know exactly where the pet cemetery was. These things are just, when I hear them say they're going to pin it all on Alex, well, I don't think they can.
Yeah.
The kids were on his property.
Yep.
I don't know. I just think that it's not going to be as hard to convince people that they had their hand right in the middle of it.
Yeah, and the other thing you have to look at with Chad and Lori, Alex dies, December 12th?
Yep.
So if she tries to say, oh, I thought Alex had the kids, da-da-da-da-da.
Uh-huh.
Well, he dies December 12th.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So she doesn't mention or is not alarmed.
Yeah.
So she can't go that route.
Right. They ruined their defense with how they acted in Hawaii.
Yeah.
If nothing else. I mean, everything before, of course, but I mean, the nonchalant chin up strut when they were being questioned by Nate, she doesn't seem like a mom whose kids are, in protective custody, wherever they are, according to what they said, is they're safe.
Yeah. She has never reacted how a normal person would react when something happens. When Charles was shot, totally ice in the veins, no emotion whatsoever. And you had spent they were married almost 14 years, I think, 13 or 14 years.
Yeah, they adopted a kid. They moved, they had a life.
I mean,
14 years is not a short marriage. And
so he's deceased, he's murdered, and you have that smile on your face, makes no sense.
And I mean, I'm speaking for myself. Let's say I was wrongly accused for deaths and I was in jail and I find out they found bodies. I think you would hear on national news my reaction.
Yeah.
But it seems like there wasn't much of a reaction. There were some rumors online, but none of it was ever proven true.
Nope.
I would venture to say she probably didn't. I mean, you heard her on the phone with Chad the day they're searching. It's not,
calm, cool, collective.
Yeah. He seemed more nervous, but anyways, and then the last question that I had or thought is we were talking about Tammy Daybell and whether or not she knew about the affair. And Melanie Gibb had said she was suspicious. I think she was super close to her sister. I'd be curious to know if she confided in her sister about some of this stuff, not just the affair, but maybe Chad's beliefs, maybe the people he was hanging out with. I don't know. I just feel like I hope Tammy did express some stuff to somebody who can testify to that.
I mean, if she talked to her sister, I mean, we don't know if we have that list.
Yeah, there was a huge list, if you remember, and it was for the desertion. So that's probably in some ways not accurate anymore. There's probably a lot of the same witnesses, even for this.
Yeah.
But we need to go back and see if any of her, I think maybe were her parents. I don't know. We'll look and see. But I'm just curious if maybe she confided in her sister or a friend about her concerns about this potential affair. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you dove back into Chad's book and you went also took a dive into Melanie Gibb's book. So we're going to talk about that right now.
Yeah, we'd had some questions about Melanie Gibb's past, like upbringing and stuff.
Really hard to find though.
Yeah. So her book, she shares some of that in her book. And so she was raised in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is close to us.
And she was born 30 minutes from where we live.
Yeah. Then I think they moved to Charlotte, and they were there the rest of her childhood and stuff. Mm-hmm. She has a sister and two younger brothers. She served a mission in California in 92 to 93. She met her ex-husband in Salt Lake City. He was actually, he's from South Africa. She has 4 boys. She kind of grew up in a dysfunctional family. She says, her resume isn't filled with degrees. Instead, it's filled with lessons from the hard knocks of life. When she turned 38, she had a mighty change of heart caused by a major personal crisis. And she opens up and she shares that after marrying her husband, she didn't know how much she really didn't know. That she had grown up in the public school system in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we are familiar with that area, so it's a lot of inner city kids and stuff like that. So back then, when she was there, the educational system wasn't caught up and wasn't as good as what it should be. So she kind of knew she didn't know a lot. She didn't learn a lot. So she would soon learn how unprepared she was for marriage, life skills, and motherhood. Those 3 things, marriage, I mean, it's
not easy for anybody.
Yeah. And she says, I was intimidated and overwhelmed at the thought of trying new things and cried often, not having any confidence in myself. So it kind of sounds like she had a pretty, rough upbringing a little bit. It seems like her dad may have helped raise her a good bit. So she didn't really mention her mom much, so I don't know about any of that. So I said the educational system was pretty bad in Charlotte, and her husband was raised in top-notch schools in South Africa. So, she says the reason she was sharing her past about being dysfunctional and all that is that we often think there's no way we can overcome some of our trials because of the dysfunction in which we grew up in. So this book was kind of her way of saying, even though you come out of this dysfunctional family, that you could, rise above it and learn. She had some health issues, tended to be something with where she couldn't have sugar. So she learned she could have sugar, but it wasn't in white. She couldn't have white sugar. So she had to get that health-wise straightened out. She thought raising her kids would be pretty easy.
Think again.
I know, right?
It's not easy raising kids.
She stated, it seemed easy to her dad. He pretty much let them do what they wanted to do. So her first child, after about 18 months, was diagnosed with Asperger syndrome, and ADHD. Mm-hmm. And we know, and that's tough to deal with in itself. We've both, dealt with kids with stuff like that, and it's very hard.
Yeah.
So she thought it was her fault that he was this way or something she did or didn't do. She became overwhelmed, not knowing how to help him. And we've been in those shoes with parents that we see coming in the school system, and it's tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any parent that has to deal with any kid on the spectrum, whether it's Asperger's, which is more of a higher functioning version. I have family who have custody of a boy who is moderate to severely autistic. He can communicate and that sort of thing, but even on the good days, I've seen my family members exasperated and tired and out of options sometimes. Sometimes it's just they have to sort of throw their hands up and give in. And so, yeah, I'm sure, especially if you have other kids, and there's always issues that make it harder to parent, I think, kids with autism.
Yeah.
Just because it's a lot more demanding.
Yep. So she became so overwhelmed that she didn't think she could take care of him anymore. So her and her husband talked, and she evaluated herself and realized that it was her parenting skills were the problem. So she took it upon herself to take some parenting classes for more than a year. It seemed her son got in a lot of trouble at school and was mean, just different things. So she says, like, after much prayer one day, her son came home from school. She told him he couldn't play with his toys for a week and he needed to spend the afternoon in his room. And she just sat and held him gently and told him she wasn't going to let go until he was nice. And she said, finally, he told her, Mom, I'm sorry and I love you. And she said to this day, they're best friends. So I think her marriage, they went to some marriage counseling that she asked, that her and her husband go to. So, I mean, this kind of just gave us a little background into her thoughts and just how she was raised.
I think it's revealing, and we're not talking about what happened. A lot of people just wanted to know sort of a backstory.
Yeah.
And, the future of that is that eventually she divorced, kind of like everybody else in this group did, kind of suddenly, I guess. But we're just going about the backstory.
Yeah. So that was kind of, there was other stuff in that book. It was some religious stuff and things about Jesus and stuff. But I just kind of pulled out her background of things. So
what's interesting though is that clearly Lori had a very dysfunctional childhood. It seems like she was raised by people who sort of felt the same way she does now about not taking responsibility. They had all the issues with the government and the IRS and that sort of thing. And so I wonder, I guess the psychology of it is, did their dysfunctional childhoods make them more susceptible to falling for this religious nonsense? I don't know. I mean, over the next, several years, decades, whatever, I think they'll be the subject of many documentaries and many studies and
and I think too, it kind of, you bring that up, it hit me, it made me think that they had a lot in common.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
And that probably, drew them together as well. So then I got to finish out Chad's book.
Oh, yeah. Before we get into that, can I just say there have been a lot of old pictures that we have found. And I don't know why this just hit me, but there's a picture of her mom coaching, was it softball or soccer or something?
It was softball, I think.
They're taking the team picture. She's in heels.
I saw that.
What in the world?
Yeah, that was really, none of the coaches we had ever would dress like that.
I'm going to tell you, one time I only wear heels in a dress if I'm getting married or buried. I'm just going to put it out there. I was raised a tomboy. My youngest is the most tomboy that I have in the house. But yeah, I don't wear heels, but the one time I wore heels to a funeral, they sunk into the ground and I about fell out for everybody. So
it's like that homecoming day, the homecoming thing on the football field. Yeah. All the girls sink in when they're walking.
You see that little dip down, but I was just thinking heels on a softball field in the grass. Go figure.
I don't know. Odd.
Sorry, it just hit me. I just saw that mental picture in my head of her in a visor and heels.
It's A-okay. So jumping back into Chad's book, I know y'all are ready for this.
Oh boy.
So some stuff I found interesting in 2008, early 2008, their book company went under. Mm-hmm. I think Tammy had to go back and get a part-time job in a computer lab at Art City Elementary School or something. Mm-hmm. He went back and got a job and this was in January of 2009. He got a job as the gravedigger again. So he says in here that the company's collapse, it took its toll on Tammy, that she was a financial officer and she took the brunt of the financial stress.
Yeah, because she probably knew she would be the one to have to go out and get a job.
Yeah.
When all this went south, because we know, Chad can go dig graves or whatever, but it doesn't seem like other than that, he had much of a job.
Yeah.
That was permanent other than, this wannabe book company.
Yeah. So he says she didn't smile for a long time, and she showed the symptoms of having suffered a mental breakdown.
Well, aside from being married to him,
Yeah.
that's a lot of stress, I would imagine, is when you have to file bankruptcy and, you know, the dream that they must have had together to start this. It seems to me that he wrote 25 books altogether. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But I think if you're selling them in people's living rooms, you're probably not going to make a big profit.
Yeah. And eventually when the bookstore went under, or the book company went under, they sent the books that they had left to like BYU and they sold them or something. I don't know. But they didn't sell many, it said.
Yeah, no. Didn't seem like it.
Yeah. So it was just a real tough time in their marriage. And he says we had been put through a very tough test, but I assured her we would make it through and be stronger for it. So just moving right along. He always has these visions. And he makes statements and he made this statement and I'm like, what? In other words, he says, I'm just like my Daybell ancestors, a good serviceable member of the stake. And he's talking about being active in the church or whatever. Mm-hmm. But when he makes things like this, like I literally roll my eyes.
Yeah. That, and other than me being in a different part of the house and he's like, come here.
Yeah.
I gotta
listen
tell
to
you,
this.
Listen to what he says.
Listen to this. He says, my family are my top priorities.
Okay.
No.
Not your wife.
No. And not your kids either, to put them through what he's put them through.
Well, that's true. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So then we get into the Frontierville.
Oh my gosh, this just triggers me.
Yeah, he talks about this, and I'm just going to help you guys so you don't have to go back and read it, because this is chapter 21 chapters so far. So he says, however, Tammy struggled to get motivated about, they were researching their ancestors, and she was struggling to get motivated about it, and she had found a new hobby, Frontierville.
So addictive.
We went there. We all went there.
Oh, yeah. I was picking my apples at like 2. I had an alarm set at one point, 1 a.m. I had to pick my apples.
Yeah. I was planting corn. I was selling it.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Getting all those shillings.
Yes. Yes. And you got the little alerts. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But she was spending a few hours each day building fictional online towns. And he said he was hoping she would soon get bored with it.
No, you don't get bored with Frontierville.
No.
You expand out.
Guys, I'm not going to lie. When I mention this again, she's over there Googling it. Is it still on there?
I swear, y'all.
Is it still on Facebook?
I haven't played Farmville since I had my last kid.
Yeah. Is it still on there? I'm looking. Does Facebook still have games?
Might or might not be planting some corns later, y'all.
We'll reach out. We'll all plant some carrots. Y'all can come to my
farm and hang out.
Yeah, and some potatoes. Yeah. Yep. And then you had the animals, right? You get animals. Yeah.
Yeah, I had chickens or something. Yeah.
Yeah, cows. You had to milk them, and yeah.
Not like what was that game we played in elementary school and middle school? Oregon Trail.
Oh yeah.
I always died of dysentery.
Dysentery. Yep. Halfway across.
And my kids always had snake bites.
Exactly. And they got it was something else they got. I don't remember what it was.
I never made it past Missouri in that game.
I didn't either. Wasn't that a math game?
It was an awesome game. All I know is when they brought out that big floppy disk and we went to the computer lab.
Oh, I was pumped.
That was the best day of school all week.
Yeah, I was pumped.
You can play it online. You can play it online now in its original form.
Really?
Still can't make it past Independence, Missouri.
I'm playing that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if you remember right, Chad says that he had a vision or whatever from her grandmother. Right?
Yeah. Convenient for grandma to pop in when Chad don't like her playing Farmville or Frontierville.
Yeah. Frontierville was a spinoff of Farmville. So the grandmother says, and I'm quoting this, okay? My descendants are letting Satan lull them to sleep with technology. 2 months ago in the temple, I told you to have Tammy quit her, and this is a bad word right here, computer game cold turkey so she would be receptive to a message from me, but she didn't. She has more important work to do than play games. We need her desperately.
Doesn't Grandma have more important things to do beyond the veil than watch Tammy play Farmville?
Yeah, so Grandma wasn't happy.
Oh, Grandma needs to mind her own business in the afterlife. This woman probably, Farmville or Frontierville was probably her only escape.
Yeah, look, I mean, she's living with,
And she's apparently escaping a lot.
yeah. So eventually, Tammy quit playing Frontierville. Um, so, and this is where it starts getting good. This starts bringing in people that we know, the names of. So, in 2006, he had a vision of a tall, dark-haired woman who would publish her near-death experience with our company. I read you that, and you got it right off. But, so we know he's talking about Julie Rowe.
Yes.
So he says, there have been a few great experiences, though. In January 2014, I was checking a preparedness website when I saw a post by a woman named Julie Rowe who said she felt she should share her near-death experience. She asked if anyone knew someone who might be able to help publish her experience. And we know, what did he say? Yeah. So he sent her an email. They started talking, and we know he published her books.
Does it not seem like his visions just suit him?
I'm telling you, we've discussed it. All of his visions and stuff comes from Hollywood.
Yeah.
They're all movies.
Yep.
Every one of them are movies.
But it seems like, okay, I don't like her playing Farmville, or I keep saying Farmville, Frontierville.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. Not quite, though. But, I mean, it's like, where is a vision that doesn't involve like something specific for him? Where's like a vision for the masses? Other than we got to gather you, but it all seems to be like, stop playing Farmville. We should start a book company.
Yeah. We should move here. We should do this. Right. Yeah. So here comes another guy in. So he gets a vision, whatever. And the spirit told him to go knock on Hector Sosa's door. Right now, he needs to write a book. So he goes and knocks on Hector's door and tells him, after talking to him a little bit, that he need to write a book.
I mean, if I went up to a random house and knocked on the door and said, you should write a book, they would think I was on crack. I mean, they would think that I know what I would think if somebody rang my doorbell and said I needed to write a book.
Yeah.
It just, where does this come from?
Yeah, I don't know. So eventually he resigned as the Springville sexton in 2014. He worked a little bit with his brother-in-law, putting in window installation company or something. He said he didn't think he would ever return to the cemetery, that it was challenging, both physically and emotionally, that he couldn't really plan things because his whole schedule would be around someone dying. He could sometimes get a coworker to cover, but it often felt like the Grim Reaper was checking our family's calendar and doing his best to disrupt our plans. That was one of his statements.
Kind of eerie.
Yeah, it's a little odd. Another thing he brings out that's just, when I read it, I'm telling you, I'm like, ugh. Sad funerals would obviously add a few extra. He's talking about pebbles to his backpack emotionally, that it would add a few extra pebbles. But I also sensed other situations, such as when a mother would come the night before and cry on her son's grave. That energy still radiated the next morning. It wasn't necessarily a dark energy, but the grief the mother felt would still weigh me down. And I'm like, no, you helped kill kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, no.
Oh, I don't think he ever. I mean, I don't know Chad. Obviously, it's really hard to think that he. I don't know. I can't formulate my thought, but I'm just saying that it's the total opposite of where we are now. And so either he's full of crap in his book, which I think is the case, or did he have a break? I don't think he had a break. I think he's crazy.
Yeah. How do you get to this point? And this last page, this is summed it all up. So he said he gets a common question that people ask him is, what parts of your books are based on what you've seen in vision and what parts did you make up? And his short answer, and this stuff is, His short answer is that I don't fictionalize any of the events portrayed. I'm really not that creative.
Oh, okay.
And then he describes his writing process. So his torn veil allows information to be downloaded into his brain from the other side. The scenes I'm shown are real events that will happen, but it is my job to fit them into the lives of the fictional families in my novels. Okay.
Okay, I'm following.
Yeah. So he basically says he's given truth, and then he writes it and fits it into the novels that he's written. At any point, did he get visions about what he's at now? Did he get visions he's going to be in jail? Because
Yeah, right.
in his little book over here, he doesn't have those visions. He doesn't say.
Right, yeah.
I mean, he says, I've seen myself in visions as an older man having the wonderful opportunity to help him build the New Jerusalem. I appeared to be in better shape in the future than I am now. And he says probably due to the lack of fast food restaurants in Zion, but...
And also in jail and prison.
Maybe it's that jail food. But he makes one last statement describing, because he's talking about, so his kids are in his books, but there's only the family that he writes. I guess they only have 2 kids.
Yeah, I think a lot of his books focus on Emma, which, if you kind of look at the surface, it seems like she might be the favorite kid.
Yeah. So he said, it is the best way. The kids have a general sense of what lies ahead for them. Now, this is what he's saying about his books and about his kids, and obviously he's seen their whole life play out before him, is what he says. The kids have a general sense of what lies ahead for them, but they don't feel their future is predetermined. Rest assured that they rely on their patriarchal blessings for guidance, not their dad's novels. So, however, putting 2 and 2 together, it means in one of his books that the fictional Emma's father is loosely based on my own future. So, I don't know. It's weird. I just say, did you see any of this?
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm going to tell you, if I saw something and knew I was going to hit by a bus, I wouldn't go out that day.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see what, I'm sure one of the first things, excuse me, that the FBI did was have their forensic psychologist to start reading his books.
Yeah,
I think
there's
probably a ton of clues in there.
I wonder how you draw that straw.
Kind of the same way you drew it between the two of us.
I know, right?
I'm too ADD to sit down and read a book. I love reading. Like, I flew through all the Harry Potter books, and I love to read. It just takes you to another world. I'm just too, you know me, I'm up and down all the time.
Yeah.
Like, my attention span is worse than my 9-year-old.
Oh, you got to get the next book you reading it. You got to get an audio book.
I know, right? I'm going to have to put my pods in and just clean my house or something, because I don't know. I just can't sit down and read. I can barely sit down on this computer for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah. So closing that out, guys, I just want to say you're welcome. You don't have to read it.
Give it up for Fruit Loop.
Yep.
Yeah.
So your next thing the possible plea stuff that came out?
Well, so the judge's order on plea agreements confused everybody, apparently, in the legal world. So I watched Court TV. They had a little special on it, about a 10-minute special, and it was about the wording of the plea deal. So it said, or of the orders for the plea agreements. And this is the part that seemed to really confuse the legal eagles. All plea offers shall be placed on the record. All plea agreements shall be reduced to writing or stated on the record. Written plea agreements shall be signed by the attorneys for both parties and by the defendant. So on this Court TV clip that they did, it didn't make sense to really any of them. Vinnie Politan, Ashley Banfield, both were like, never heard this. And little Shanley Painter, she is the cutest little thing. I love watching Shanley. She is just adorable. And she's really smart. And she asked if this is normal. She had asked a local Idaho lawyer, have you ever seen this? And he said, no, never seen it. Is it maybe that the first one to make a deal will get the best deal? That's kind of what Vinny said. And then Ashley Banfield thought it was weird. She's never come across anything like this. And it could be the wording. It doesn't necessarily mean that he is taking a plea deal. Although they're so common in cases like this, it's just this case is so sensationalized and so forefront in mainstream media that, I don't think there are a lot of cases as intricate and woven as this one is, but when you have co-conspirators, plea deals are super common. It's not, if you look at the number of cases that are bound for trial but end in a plea agreement, it's more often than not. The actual percentage of cases that go to trial are small compared to what's out there. So they don't know. They were sort of back and forth. A couple of them thought maybe this could be sort of a precursor to a plea deal. And then Ted Rollins, who we love because he just kind of tells it like it is.
Yeah.
He doesn't think Chad will take a plea, and he doesn't even know if the state would offer one. It just depends on, I guess, the strength of the evidence they have against him. He thinks maybe out of the two, Lori would be the preferred to give a plea or a deal to, mainly because the bodies were on Chad's property. So there's just a heavier implication just with what we know right now. And that's kind of what Ted was saying, is that just give him what we know. You would think that it being her being a mother, and as a mother, your instinct is to protect, even with your own life, and to never put your kids in a situation where they could be harmed emotionally or physically or both. And Ashley had said that after she heard the jailhouse call between Chad and Lori when they were searching the property on the day the kids were found, that she sounded culted out, that she just was looking to Chad for answers. Like, are they in the house? She just thought she sounded out to lunch, which I don't know.
I think she knew she was being recorded.
Right. That's kind of my thought too, but
yeah.
We don't know. And then the other thing they had brought up was the amount of time that they have requested for his trial in January, which was 3 weeks. 2 weeks. And or was it 14 days or 15? I don't know. Yeah. But anyways, and Ted brought up a good point, which is, there are a lot of murder trials that are way less.
Yeah.
But yeah, according to Ted, he thought if anybody were going to be offered a plea, he thought it may be more likely that it's Lori opposed to Chad. But we don't know what they have on Lori. We still have yet to see cell phone pings or surveillance or anything. I don't know. I don't know that the state would have to offer him one. If you just look to, like, even back to her checking that app, every time there's pretty much big news about the case, it just shows that she, to me, is trolling to see what's being said. I don't know. We shall see. The other thing too is Chad has not exercised his right to kick a judge off. So we don't even know if this is going to be the judge that goes to trial that we saw last week.
Yeah.
Because they can dismiss one judge for no reason. And if Chad and Pryor do not like this judge, they can just ask for him to be thrown off. Lori did it with Judge Edens, I believe.
Yep, at the beginning.
Because he was overseeing the guardianship case with Kay and Larry in the event JJ were found alive.
Yep.
Where they would get guardianship.
Yep.
And I just think they're waiting to see maybe if one turns, like we said early in the podcast.
Yeah, they're in the pot and they're bowling, and you're gonna see which one.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the best way to look at these charges that they're going to trial for as of now, they're kind of like a bookmark. They're a placeholder. Bigger charges are coming, just not yet.
Yeah.
So we'll see where it goes.
Yep.
And we are waiting to hear news about Melanie Pulaski giving birth.
Yeah. As soon as we hear, we'll let you guys know.
Yeah.
We wanted to say that we're thinking and praying for everybody in the path of the hurricane that came through.
Yeah.
I know Larry and Kay did some live stuff showing through their town and all, and it was pretty messed up.
Oh, yeah.
So we're thinking and praying for you guys as you're cleaning up and fixing everything. And
I have a ton of clothes I need to get rid of, and I would love to try to maybe find some kind of a place you could send it to where it could go down there. I have kids' clothes, adult clothes. If anybody out there knows of a charity, especially if you're local, where I could ship some stuff to, please let me know. Because I have shoes, I have all kinds of stuff. Yeah. My house is busting at the seams as fast as my kids are growing. So,
yep.
So I think that's about all we had for tonight.
Okay, we have taken up almost an hour of your time.
Wow.
Yeah, that was
You
quick.
always say that
I
at
know,
the end of every
right?
podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here thinking, wow, we just sat down, but
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah.
So we still have some stuff we want to do regarding the other parts to the Charles thing we were doing. The little simulation with the bat we would love to do. And we have some ideas. Fruit Loop's heading out of town in a couple of weeks, so we're going to have some podcasts at the ready while she's gone. And so if you have any ideas, keep them coming. We do try to pick some and cover them, and definitely more creative than where my brain has been lately, because I just kind of I got nothing.
Your questions, that everybody asks questions and makes points. They're spot on. And
oh yeah.
Just awesome it gives us something to start digging with and saying, oh yeah, that's a good point.
And it also sort of gives Fruit Loop and I stuff to talk about, because we may just be having a normal conversation and then one of us says something and then we're, put that down for the next podcast.
Yeah.
And so you guys come in with this fresh brain and you're like, oh, this is where I want to go. So keep them coming. But I think that's about all. Maybe we'll have another podcast later in the week, maybe midweek, Wednesday or so. Still trying to get this school situation going. And so it's taking up all my time.
I know it's bad because we don't text much during the day now. It's I know. Crickets.
I know. Yeah. It's me running and then me. You want to know what's funny is I feel like I'm in Mission Impossible trying to dodge 3 webcams walking through my house.
That's funny.
I'm one of those moms. I don't want to be on the webcam. So I'm literally, sometimes I look like I'm doing the limbo. It's I see I'm in the line of fire and I duck down and then I pass by one room and they've got their webcam on. I'm doing a cartwheel past the room. And yeah, it's between my younger two, I've been pretty busy.
Yeah.
And especially with my little one, I have a little, it's like an intercom. So you plug it in one room. You plug it in one room, and the other room has their own intercom, and you press a button, and you can. It's like a 2-way. And my daughter, she loves this 2-way. So it's every 3 minutes, can you bring me a juice box? Can I have some grapes?
I need a sandwich.
What are you doing in there, Mom?
That's hilarious.
Why are the dogs barking? And I'm just
that.
I literally took my half in there the other day and sat it next to hers, and I said, I'm off duty.
That's so funny.
If it's an emergency, come get me, but quit pressing the button.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, we've both just been busy and doing our,
Hey, before I forget, because somebody did ask for this, the recipe for Grammy's banana pudding, did you find it?
I have it. I think it's in my lockbox, in my fireproof box.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm going to get that together and I'm going to share it because it is so awesome.
It is really good. Now, it's Southern banana pudding.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Yeah, if you're diabetic, which I am, I take extra 50 units when I eat it.
She's over there shooting up like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, buddy, but it is worth it.
Yeah, she's going to make us fried squash and cabbage and cornbread tomorrow.
Oh, I'm in.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in.
So, all right, guys. Well, we'll hopefully see you guys around Wednesday unless something crazy happens. If we find out that Melanie has had her baby, we're going to let you know.
Yep.
Any developments, keep an eye on our Twitter or Facebook. Twitter is at Pretty Lies Alibi. Facebook, you can search under the name. And so anytime there's a news thing or a new document posted on the Idaho Cases of Interest page, we try to put those up there for you. But unless something major happens, we will talk to you guys midweek or so.
Yeah, and don't forget YouTube, subscribe, hit the like, hit the little bell so you get notified when something comes up.
Yep, and we put every podcast on YouTube now, and we do pictures. So if we're talking about something specific, a picture or something like that, we try to put it up on there at the time we're talking about it. It kind of flows nice. So if you have time to sit by your computer and listen, I think it adds a little bit to it.
Yeah, and also Spreaker a little bit, the volume, and it's Spreaker only because it's not anywhere else. Some people say when they listen on Spreaker, they can't hear it as good.
Yeah.
So it's something with that app, I guess.
Yeah, for the most part, nobody's having tons of problems.
Yep.
Oh, and somebody had commented that we interrupt each other a lot. We've always done that.
Sorry
about that. That's just kind of how we roll. A lot of times we finish sentences, but we are bad about interrupting each other. Sorry.
Yep. We apologize.
You can't teach a old dog new tricks, though. It's just going to be happening. Sorry.
30 years. That's yeah.
Yep. All right, guys.
Well, good night.
Have a good one.